Hello everybody, this is Mithril Zenith, and today we have a very special opportunity on our hands. Yes, we get to watch my good friend Splice play a Fire Emblem game for the very first time soon. This man has constantly talked down about Fire Emblem on his Smash Bros. Streams, but he loves XCOM. Why is that, and what made him change his mind? Today we'll be talking all about that and more with the man himself. Splice, would you like to add anything about yourself to that intro?
Okay, well, first of all, I want to say 90% of my talking down to Fire Emblem is mostly a bit. I don't actually hate Fire Emblem, but I discovered I could get a rise out of people by pretending I do a little bit. So,
you know what? That's fine.
Look, yeah. Whenever every good wrestling card needs a good heel, and sometimes it's fun to play the villain. But to be honest, I never really talked down to Fire Emblem too much. It was more, frankly, it all goes back to Marth back in Melee. But, you know, I think that's how it is for most people of my generation. I'm in my late 30s. Mm-hmm. And so we didn't even know Fire Emblem wasn't a thing until Smash Brothers. And so suddenly he shows up, and if I may say, is Marth in Melee is, I think, one of the best designed characters ever in terms of low skill floor but high skill ceiling. Mm-hmm. Very few characters are that well tuned to where they're easy to pick up and hard to master.
I was trash at Melee, but I still played Marth and felt like I knew what I was doing, even though I totally didn't. I was like 8 at the time.
But no, but Marth really is like very, very well designed. Mm-hmm. And so, it led to the weirdness of everyone in our Smash community is playing Marth, and no one knows who the heck this guy is. And so it always felt a little weird. And so I started for the fun of it, making fun of it, but we had to go online and just find out what is this Fire Emblem thing. And this is back in the internet age where the data we're getting isn't even reliable. I mean, we thought there was a way to catch a Pokemon, like you could catch Yoshi and Peekaboo in Pokemon.
Oh, the old GameFAQs era days were amazing. Yeah. I loved that. I remember going through Melee with like that old character guide of like, hey, here's how to do this. I think I remember reading, and this was, you know, I was a kid, so I'm late 20s, and I remember reading as a kid something that said, I mean, it's in the trophy descriptions, you can actually read who these characters are, but I remember reading online something that said that, like, Marth was, like, the enemy of Roy's game or something, like, something stupid like that, that's, like, not true at all.
Maybe, I can't quite remember, but it was all sorts of...
Yeah, that's the quality of information we're dealing with here.
Well, and on top of it, like, there's still the fact that, and boy, that would be an interesting parallel universe, that they almost cut Marth and Roy from the US release. And
really?
Had that not happened, had that not happened, you know, what does Fire Emblem look like then? But no, and so it was. I was always fascinated by Fire Emblem, but at that time, I'm about going into college, and the Fire Emblem games hadn't really come over to the U.S. And by the time I get over to college, I have time for Smash and not much else. Well, and StarCraft, not much else video game wise. And so what was interesting was there were a bunch of people who were really into Fire Emblem coming into our community. And they never did a very good job, I feel, explaining what type of game it was. I did not realize Fire Emblem was a strategy game. I thought it was more akin to like StarCraft, the way people like it looked and people were describing it, and I'm like, oh, so it's like anime Age of Empires in my head. Which Age of Empires, not a bad game, but I didn't even look. As much as I like Sakurai,
who was describing this game to you?
I mean,
because this would have been like late 2000s, mid to late 2000s.
Had someone instead said, "Oh no, it is it's more medieval armored war or advanced wars."
Same company. Like, okay. I mean,
yes, exactly. Which, for the record, I called when Advanced Wars got the reboot camp got announced, and I just want that on the record.
Yeah, no, we yeah, you definitely did. It was that stream. You were wrong with all of your predictions.
Every single.
But that one, you were just like long shot, and that was a couple years ago when they actually just first announced it. Before all the delays and everything. It was just crazy. Anyway.
Well, the most important thing was that I got it right. My entire logic and reasoning for it were completely wrong, but I got it right, and that's all that matters. But
exactly.
No, and so to be honest, mostly it was so my whole hatred of Fire Emblem is mostly due to just kind of wanting to be the heel a little bit. And to be honest, I got a little tired of seeing Marth in Smash because everyone was playing him. Yeah. And so I started making the joke that every time someone plays Marth, a baby dies.
Oof, that's a little dark.
Oh, it was.
But granted, this also college.
Oh yeah, we're all a bunch of edgelords at this point, and
it
led to the
mid 2000s. Yeah, everyone was edgelord in mid 2000s.
Well, we were referring to him as the baby killer, and but there were a lot of them, and so we just we ran with it. We embraced it. It was all good times.
For the members in my audience who were children during that era, this is the era where Shadow the Hedgehog came out and was popular.
Okay,
it was mocked, but it was popular.
I will take no responsibility for Shadow the Hedgehog.
You don't have to take responsibility for Shadow the Hedgehog. I'm just saying, for context-wise, this is like peak edginess of media as a whole is the mid 2000s.
Oh yeah. Definitely.
So don't judge, don't judge people too much based on what they were like, however many years ago that was. I don't want to think about how long that was.
That's now we're looking at 16 years ago.
Yeah. Anyway, let's change the subject a little bit. So we've talked about how you don't necessarily have a beef with Fire Emblem directly, but why is it that you haven't even just picked up one of these games casually and played it? And by that note, why have you decided to make that change now?
Okay, so it's a weird thing with me in strategy games. I really have to like the aesthetic. And for me, that's Fire Emblem just never really, their aesthetic has never really meshed with me. But I have, like I did say earlier, Advanced Wars, XCOM. I tend to go for more modern themed things. And you'd think, isn't the gameplay more important? For me, it's not for some reason. Now, as for why I'm doing this, I would love to tell you it's because I am this person who's trying to branch out and embrace new horizons. No, it's 100% because of money. Someone once asked me on stream what it would take to get me to play Fire Emblem on stream, and I, as a
not
joke,
me,
said,
by the way.
Yes, not him. Someone completely different. $2,000 is what I said as a joke. To which a couple days later, I get a message where it's like, "Can it be in chunks?" To which me, as a enterprising entrepreneur, you of course say yes. And so this one person has, I don't know if they want me to reveal them, but they have slowly but surely been donating $50, $100, sometimes $200 at a time. And we've been keeping a running tally. A couple months ago, we hit the number, but the time to stream it wasn't quite landing with our schedule. And so now we have an open slot, so we're going to do that. So I'm going to be playing Fire Emblem Awakening.
So was Awakening just because that's the game they chose for you, or?
No. That's, of all the Fire Emblems, it's the one that I have been the most interested in playing for a couple years. It definitely all goes back to the Lucina and Robin trailer for Smash 4.
That's fair.
I mean, well, I'll just start here. Like, Sakurai clearly loves that game. He's got 3 characters from one game in Smash, so that tells me it must be at least somewhat decent. More importantly, most of the reveals for Smash characters that have been in the Fire Emblem series have been kind of bad, I'd say. The Byleth one in particular is just a garbage reveal.
It was very much, with a lot of these Fire Emblem reveals, and I don't remember the Corrin one, but it's very much like, hey, if you are a fan of the game and are playing this, then you'll enjoy the little riff on this cutscene that we made, inserting them into Smash. If not, you will have no idea what's happening, and then it's just like, wait, another Fire Emblem characters in Smash?
Well, and I have, especially at the point of Ultimate, where a lot of them are very similar characters to one another. Now, I don't mind that too much. I think that part gets a little overstated in the Smash community, but it can lead to things feeling a bit samey at times. But Fire Emblem Awakening, where it starts off, I see some dude on the ground I don't know, and I see some blue-haired chick I don't know, and it's like Lucina wakes her blade, or what I think that's what it was. And it's like, okay, I don't know who this is, but it looks like a Fire Emblem character. And she's like, what is this power? And then all of a sudden it's Captain Falcon. And at this point, Captain Falcon's kind of the mascot for Smash itself.
Yeah.
I mean, heck, he's been in more of those games than F-Zero games, unfortunately.
Yeah, F-Zero 99 technically counts, but if that doesn't count, we haven't had a real F-Zero game since, like, GX on the GameCube.
Yeah. And so, what they use... They make Captain Falcon look really cool, so that automatically puts things over the top because it makes it feel good. But then some other character I don't know shows up, and the thing is, Robin is, by all accounts, the exact same bland, faceless nobody that Corrin and Byleth are. But because of how they introduce him and how they angled the shots and everything, he comes across instead as cool, collected, and tactical, whereas Byleth and Corrin just come across as unsalted crackers.
Yeah, and I'm gonna be honest, within the Fire Emblem community, there's only a few people that would actually argue with that. A lot of the Fire Emblem community actively dislike the blank slate avatar protagonist characters, or supposed blank slate avatar self-inserts.
Well, and this is the part where I don't know, so maybe you can educate me. I have always assumed they're so bland in Smash because how they are in the game depends upon the decisions you make, and so they're probably less blank slate within their game. Am I correct in that
assumption? If
really?
Only. So,
okay.
Without going into too much detail, because if you enjoyed this game, you might play them. Corrin is different depending on what route of the story you play, but that also is... It's not like a built-into the game route split. This is a, hey, you bought a different version of the game. It's like a Pokemon style. Like, hey, you bought Pokemon Red versus Pokemon Blue.
I heard that it was... Well, and wasn't it... maybe I have the timeline wrong. I don't think it had even come out in America when they made the trailer for them in Smash.
Probably not. That was... the timeline is 2015-2016, I want to say. Because Three Houses was the first... Was it Three Houses or SOV? The last one on 3DS or the first one was the first time they did a worldwide release.
Okay.
Before then, Fire Emblem has always been in Japan at least a few months, if not like a year plus, before the States. And there are still several games that have never been translated officially. Get on that, Nintendo.
Yeah. Look, if you're waiting for Nintendo to translate
it's never
for you,
happen.
the Mother 3 community has some words for you. But
yeah.
No, and so to me, it's like, okay, this game's like these characters at least seem like they have some personality to them, and it felt like through that, it's like, okay. And I've since heard other things about mechanics and stuff that I'm like, that's kind of clever. That sounds interesting. For me, Advanced Wars is kind of what I just assumed it was. I didn't realize before there were this social aspect to it that actually probably puts it closer to XCOM in terms of there being a sort of two levels of gameplay, where there's the actual battle, but then you have your more macro style as well.
A little bit. It varies, game to game in the series. I will say Awakening
I'm not expecting anything on XCOM's level, of course.
Yeah. Not for base building, but I will say that XCOM 2, introducing, like, hey, your squad mate bonds and whatnot, was definitely inspired, and I think someone even said this in an interview, inspired by the Fire Emblem support system. And I think the support system is most focused on mechanically, at least, I will say, in Awakening.
Okay.
I don't know how much to tell you because I know that you're going in semi-blind. You know some basic stuff about it.
Yeah.
I guess
know there's time travel. I know that what relationships you do can affect stats for characters that come from the future. I don't really know how. I just know that that's a thing.
Fair enough. And I guess over time, I can ask if you want information or if you want to stay blind to it and just go through straight. I think staying blind to it is a great way to go, but there are some things that can be a little bit confusing, especially because Awakening is a little bit different its own beast. Not as much as like Three Houses is different its own beast, but it does some stuff that the other games don't necessarily do. But granted, that's kind of true about every Fire Emblem game. They always are trying to change up the formula a little bit.
And to be honest, that feature is the part of me that when I say I'm mostly joking, I've been kind of interested from the sidelines just to hear what's different game to game, and hearing, like, my sister is the middle of my three sisters, she's really into Fire Emblem. She has opinions on things. And so I hear it and I'm just like, okay, I have no clue what this means at all. But you know, it's what, like, she will go to bat for Corrin in a way no one else on the internet will.
Oh,
and
no.
so
Just
I don't,
that type of person. Okay. Yeah,
I don't she likes that game, and so I don't know what reason, I don't know why she really likes that game.
Look, I've had a number of friends who really like that game, and I think Corrin does get a bad rep over some things, so I think it's well deserved in other things. But that's just also me.
All I know is Corrin's weird transformation feat really bothered me on a deep level. Fair. I don't like them. They're like good news is gorilla deer hoofs, and it's not good. It's bad. It's not dragony. It's just horrifying.
The good news is Corrin doesn't exist in Awakening, so deer feet can't hurt you.
Yeah, deer gorilla feet. That's the problem. It's like half hand, half hoof, and that's just
it's like a water Kirin. I think it's supposed to be dragon. I don't know. It's weird.
Oh, what?
Kirin, Kirin. It's some sort of like Japanese mythological creature.
Okay, don't know that, but
some sort of weird horse thing. I don't know for sure if that's what's supposed to be.
Yeah,
though.
One of the reasons I've hesitated is up until more recent times, I was never gonna play Fire Emblem. Oh, what's the one with Ike? What are those two games?
Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn.
Yeah, I was never going to play those because that was back when I thought it was an RTS. And so, when I would have been getting more into strategy games, those games were on mobile for the most part, and I just didn't. I didn't have a DS, and so I just was never going to play anything on mobile. So now that these things are more readily available, I'm gonna try and check it out. And so I'm interested to see what I like. Now, I do have one concern, and this is only after playing Persona 5.
Sure.
How much cringe dialogue am I gonna have to go through? Because
what do you define as cringe?
You know cringe when you see it.
Fair. Like, I will say certain characters have more than others. Some Awakening gets a bad rep for it sometimes, but I think it's mostly focused on certain characters. But they do kind of throw a little bit in situations and whatnot. You'll get more cringe overall through the supports, because each of the supports is like a conversation that these characters have that's, hey, they kind of bump character traits into each other a little bit and explore that. There are a couple of moments, I'm trying to think of specifics. Certain characters are going to come off as a lot more cringy than others. Not everyone's going to be cringe. And it doesn't really enter the main story too much outside of a little bit here and there. And even then, it's just like, you know, it's over pretty quickly.
I'm not going to have any issues with like a teacher being a maid, am I?
No. There's no teachers. And nothing gets shown ever. Like,
well, yeah.
I'm trying to think. It's like
anyway.
At most you get like splash images of whoever you support with, but that's like, you know, still fully clothed and everything, obviously. But like, there are some implied situations of like,
Well, I mean,
hey, this character wandered into that other character in the bath or whatever.
Well, but I mean, it has to be because they're getting into relationships. That's part
you
of the
would
whole
think.
Plot.
I will say there are some characters that are just kind of awkward no matter how it happens, and there are several marriages that feel like, hey, we only introduced this S support because it's a game mechanic, not because there's any reasonable reason why this character would ever be married to any of these characters.
What are you talking about? You need their ancestors to learn a specific spell. I read Awkward Zombie. I know how this works.
Yeah, no, exactly. We need to make sure that the 1,000-year-old dragon girl is well and truly... I don't know where to go with this conversation, so I'm going to stop. Anyway. So... You know a little bit about Fire Emblem and about Awakening then, with the whole like child unit support thing that Awakening has.
Yeah, with some sort of time travel thing going on to make it a thing. Which it's one of those things. Someone told me that, and I'm like, that's a clever way to marry the more dating sim part of this game with the actual combat.
Yeah, and Awakening, because that was, in my mind, it's really one of its main focuses, was the time travel plotline. It does it fairly well, in my opinion. You're free to draw your own opinions, obviously, but
I mean, yeah, you know me. I have no problem having unpopular opinions.
Yeah, let's not talk about Breath of the Wild.
Legend of Zelda. Yeah, Breath of the
Wild. Anyway, with that out of the way, though, what's your history with other like turn-based strategy games and other RPGs? You mentioned Advance Wars, you mentioned Persona, you mentioned XCOM.
I think I'm trying to think if there was anything other than Advanced Wars that was... So turn-based RPGs, I played Pokemon Red as a kid, got 149 Pokemon, and I would eat a Tauros burger because it wouldn't let me catch it. Stupid Tauros. I played Mario RPG. I bounced off of all the Final Fantasy. I got Final Fantasy X. Apparently, I got like 90% of the way through Final Fantasy X and just quit because I just kind of realized I didn't care about what was happening, and so I just stopped playing. I've usually struggled in a lot of turn-based RPGs. I don't know why some work, some don't. Persona 5 I love. I think it has something to do with the counter system. It feels sort of puzzly to me. I don't know. It gets the good chemicals going. And others I've struggled with. I did like Advanced Wars. And obviously XCOM is a completely different monster because XCOM is brutal in a way that most RPGs are not. I play with Iron Man on, so when people talk about permadeath in Fire Emblem, I'm just like, okay, that's my jam. I do like the meanness of it.
So you're saying you're going to be playing on classic mode then?
Oh yeah, 100%. No, I mean, if I come back from Iron Man Legendary XCOM and I play, kitty mode or whatever it's called, what's it actually called? I just refer to it as kitty mode.
So it's classic mode or casual mode.
Oh, well, wow, they call you filthy casuals. That is impressive. I did not expect that.
Yeah, I mean, Fire Emblem Fates introduced Phoenix mode, where if a character dies on a map, they literally just respawn like a turn or two later.
Wow, that is...
It is...
that is kitty mode.
For lack of a better term, some might call it game journalist mode, for people who just want to experience the story and not have to learn how to play.
Yeah, if you can't clear the tutorial level in Cuphead, this mode's for you.
A little bit.
Now let me ask you about difficulty. Like compared to XCOM, how would you rate the difficulty?
So it depends. I'm trying to think of if Awakening has an easy mode or if it's just normal. If it's easy, normal, hard, lunatic, or if it's normal, hard, lunatic. So I will say...
Well, I'll play it on normal to start, because when you don't know what units do, you get in trouble.
I would say play either on normal or on hard, because I worry with... The way I'm going to put it is, Awakening is scaled poorly.
Okay.
In terms of... The jump
is it between like the curve, or
the jump between hard and lunatic is like the difference between XCOM normal and legendary.
Really? Okay. Wow.
Yes. The jump between like hard is okay. You'll make some mistakes. You'll lose some units. You figure it out. You might, if you get in a bad spot, you can grind some, but enemies feel pretty fair. Hard feels like a fair challenge that eventually towards the end game, you're kind of walking over everyone.
Okay, now I make the joke about I have to do it because I play XCOM. But in all honesty, do you recommend I play classic mode, or should I not? Do you think it's going to be weird enough for me just because it's not XCOM or it's a different game that I'm going to make some mistakes just not knowing what it is and it'll ruin the gameplay?
So generally speaking, you're not going to like soft lock yourself or ruin the gameplay by losing units and continuing on. If you really don't like a unit dying, you can always reset the chapter, though you probably don't want to do, you probably would want to do like an Iron Man. I don't know, like, you're free to play whichever one you want. I think that you would probably enjoy classic mode and playing it as an Iron Man and just kind of going through there and experiencing it. If you play through normal, I don't foresee you really having any problems unless there are certain mechanics that just for some reason bounce off your brain entirely.
Okay, I think I'll do normal classic then. That sounds probably... I'd either do hard casual or normal classic.
That's fair.
Maybe I'll figure it out tomorrow, I guess.
That's fair. So is tomorrow when you're going to be streaming it the first time?
Yes. Yeah, obviously it's not very
tomorrow
good
for our recording, but
yeah. December 30th, which is going to be my birthday stream because I was born December 31st. Yes, I am a tax deduction baby.
Well, I will post this up then. We'll see when I post it up then. So are you going to be streaming it every Saturday? Or are you going to be mixing it up?
Well, so what I'm planning on doing, because I keep coming back to XCOM. It just happens. And so what I think I'm going to do, I'm going to turn Saturday into Strategy Saturday or Strategic Saturday. I don't know, which one of those sounds better. In the comments, tell me what you think sounds better, Strategic or Strategy Saturday. Anyway, and so I'm probably going to bounce between one strategy game, go back to XCOM 2 for a bit, and then go to something else. So I'm looking on Saturdays probably Fire Emblem Awakening for a while, then maybe either back to XCOM or I might try Persona 5 Tactica.
Okay. If you really enjoy Fire Emblem, do you see yourself maybe playing the other games?
I don't, to be honest, the other ones haven't really grabbed me in terms of like I'm interested in playing them. But once I actually play one, that might change, and also, people will then see, okay, Jordan liked this, he might not like that. And so I think I'll be able to, I think right now I'm hard to give good advice to.
That's
fair. But I think once people actually get a feel for what I like, they might be able to recommend me something else.
Fair enough.
I don't anticipate me playing whatever Corrin's game is, because you can tell I didn't even bother to memorize what it's called.
Yeah, Fire Emblem Fates, if you really get into like the mechanics of Fire Emblem, then Fates Conquest is a good game to play where you skip the story and just play for the gameplay. That's how 90% of people recommend playing it. But aside from that, yeah, I wouldn't necessarily recommend Fates, especially not as a starting point.
But yeah, so maybe other stuff will catch me in the future. I kind of doubt it, just because, again, actually, maybe the GameCube games, those might have a chance, because I wrote those off a long time ago, so I don't know anything about them. Whereas I actually have some idea around Three Houses and whichever one Toothpaste Head is from.
So yeah, Three Houses is a lot more like time management sim between the stuff, a little bit more Persona like that. Path of Radiance and Radiant Dawn, I will say, are very, for lack of a better term, they're books. There's a lot of, they're very story heavy, and there's a lot of reading dialogue. So if you're into a sit-down story game that's very much slower paced, even like the combat is slower because things are just a lot more bulky than they are aggressive, then that, Path of Radiance and then into Radiant Dawn is interesting for that. I love those games, but I am willing to admit that they have problems, especially if you're someone who likes faster paced gameplay. Awakening is an interesting balance with it. Like I said, it's kind of the start of like unit building emblem of you really, whoever you invest into, you can turn them into like gods on the battlefield type thing. But
as an XCOM player, that does sound intriguing to me.
Mm-hmm. XCOM is an interesting and I think not one-to-one comparison because, for lack of a better term, XCOM is highly lethal. Even at endgame, the biggest thing is that your firepower increases, not necessarily your durability.
Yeah, it's all about murdering them so they can't murder you.
Yeah, whereas with Fire Emblem, there are some units that do that, but a lot of units, their durability will increase, or their evasiveness, or whatnot,
okay, so
as
they
well as their
use
killing power.
They use meat shields and evasion tanks. Okay.
Yeah, so defense is a stat, is what I'm gonna say, and defense is a flat reduction of damage.
Whereas in XCOM, HP is a stat.
I mean, HP's a stat too, but yes, there is no traditional damage reduction. Defense. There is no damage reduction in XCOM outside of like 1 or 2 skills that are usually only on enemies. Fire Emblem, it's a math numbers game. And so every unit has like an attack stat, a defense stat, stuff like that.
This is the part I have to ask, and I think it was you who told me this. Are the numbers a lie in Fire Emblem?
How do you mean lie?
So in XCOM, until XCOM 2, the numbers you saw were the actual percentages, and I've heard that they have since. Well, I know this in XCOM 2, unless you're on Legendary, it fudges the numbers a bit to not make you feel as bad. So it's like you may have an 85% chance to hit, but it'll say 75 instead. So that if you miss, it doesn't feel as bad. I've heard that Fire Emblem has that going on.
Kind of. So the way Fire Emblem does it is... First of all, it's different between games, but the way that Awakening does it, if I remember right, is that it is... what's called by the community a 2RN system, or 2 random number system. Basically, you take the average of 2 random numbers, and if the average is below whatever your chance to hit is, then you'll hit. So it weights it. It weights it on an S curve, so it's like anything that's above 50% will be much more likely to hit, and anything that's below 50% will be much less likely to hit than it kind of displays as. That's just for hit chances. Crit chances are 1-to-1.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, they've done that because that matches more of players' psychology of what randomness is versus what actual randomness is. Because if you play any of the games before the Game Boy era, the ones that are like Japanese only, those have 1RN systems, and any of the games after Awakening have adjusted the system to work differently as well. For instance, with Fates, if I remember right, is that it applies the S curve on the bottom but not on the top, so you're relatively more likely, like it's I know it's not specifically accurate, but it's closer to accurate for numbers above 50%, but for numbers below 50% it is using that kind of reduced S curve thing.
Okay.
It's confusing.
Interesting choice.
Basically, what I'm gonna say is that the way that Awakening works, it takes 2 random numbers and takes the average of them for what you're getting, and so it is... if you know statistics, you can graph the curve, and it's gonna be...
You know me in statistics. I do love statistics. No, so it homogenizes the experience a bit more.
Yeah.
You're not gonna have as wide a variance.
Yeah, and granted, you're going to see a lot of numbers in Awakening, especially in like normal mode. A lot of your to-hit numbers will, after the early game, start getting into like the high 80s and 90s and whatnot, unless you're using like really inaccurate weapons.
Gotcha. So it sounds like you're much less likely to miss 90% shots in, well, not shots. Well, maybe with archers. But anyway.
It happens, but it is less likely to happen.
Whereas in XCOM, it's literally, I mean, that's the meme. It's XCOM, baby.
Yeah, 95% chance to hit. Your gun is held to the alien's face.
It's worse because it's like the gun is literally in it's in their head, literally clipping into their brain matter. And it's like, and your character will just jerk the gun at the last second. You're just like, why?
Yeah.
Fine. If you die, you deserve it. We gotta let evolution take its course here.
Unfortunately, that does happen. Anyway, any last thoughts, last questions that you have for me, maybe, about Fire Emblem before you get into this? I may or may not have this video live tomorrow morning. I'm going to try to have that. I might just have to move my schedule.
If you do, I'll be very impressed. I'll be very impressed to start. More importantly, okay, is there any hot button topic that I need to know beforehand? Jordan, don't touch that third rail.
Hot button topic for Awakening specifically, or Fire Emblem as a whole?
Maybe as a whole, but Awakening maybe is probably, since that's the game I'm about to jump into.
So in terms of Fire Emblem generally, the community, if the community picks up on this, loves to debate about what units are good and what units are bad. Okay. And love to bring in what they see as facts and logic into it. Because despite being a game with randomized growth rates, if you take those randomized growth rates and chart them out as if they're just a percentage that adds up, you can get some numbers that you can use to argue. And so they're going to, if they come into your videos and streams, they might complain about, hey, why are you using this unit and not that unit? Or why are you using this unit in this class and not this unit in that class? And I'd say just play the way you want to play. That, you know, it's hard. Yeah. It's hard to mess up. Other hot button topic is playing on casual mode versus classic versus whatever, but we've already talked about that.
Yeah, that one I'm used to. Although I'm usually the psycho on the Iron Man, so I don't tend to. You don't tend to get the casuals coveted being like, why aren't you playing on casual? Yeah. It's not really in their nature. It's definitely the more people with the stick up their butts like me. So
yeah, the other hot button topics in terms of like just rote elitism are whether you grind. People who are more elitist in the community say that you shouldn't ever use like free grinding experience. You should just play chapter to chapter. I mean, you can play however you want, is my stance on it. I've tried to
this is something that for me in RPGs, I hate grinding so much.
Well, the good news is you shouldn't have to grind unless you're trying to level, like, everyone up. Because the game has a deployment limit that will kind of funnel you down the course of picking what units to raise and just raising them. And then in the case of certain units, there are some units that are bad, but people will swear by them as good because of one or two traits they have or because of their long-term potential, even though getting them to long-term is such a slog.
Gotcha.
The whole farmers to heroes type thing, and in Awakening, it's literally, there is a farmer character that when you pick them up, if you play their chapter, you will be, why would I ever use this unit? Their stats are worse than the units in Chapter 1, my starting chapter.
Gotcha. Okay. One more question. Is there a fatigue system?
Not in Awakening.
Okay. But there is in future games?
In previous games. Okay. The only game that had a true fatigue system in terms of you can't like use the same units in back-to-back battles was a game called Thracia 776. It's
what?
So Fire Emblem 5, Thracia 776. It's the year of the game that the fictional year that it is.
This sounds like a sci-fi movie starring
it does, doesn't it? That game is often called various things, but it was the last game made fully by the original creator of Fire Emblem, who then went on to do other stuff before, with various disagreements through Nintendo, the series leadership changed hands. And he had a lot of very interesting ideas of complex mechanics to put into strategy games. And so he introduced stuff like, hey, your mounted units have to dismount when they're going indoors. You have to worry about your unit's stamina the more they fight. If they get fatigued, they have to rest a chapter. You can capture units and take their items, stuff like that. And so Thracia had a lot of very interesting mechanics that have not yet returned to the rest of the Fire Emblem series.
Interesting. Man, there is a huge dark period of all the Fire Emblem games before the Ike one, whose name keeps escaping me. And Radiant Dawn, right?
Yeah, Path of Radiance, Radiant Dawn. Yeah.
That's right. There's two of them. Yeah, my entire history before that, and I know there's an entire history before that, but it is just this giant black void of my gaming knowledge.
Fair enough. Well, if any of my viewers want to check out you streaming Fire Emblem, or maybe like a VOD of your first stream or whatnot, where can they check it out?
You can check me out. My name is Splice Stream, rhymes with ice cream. Twitch, Kick, YouTube. It's all under the same name. And we're going to be starting that on Saturdays, starting at 9 a.m. Pacific, noon Eastern. And we'd love to have you. We joke about me having a beef with... I actually don't have a beef with Fire Emblem as a game, and I definitely don't have it with any Fire Emblem players. You do you love you, and hopefully I will enjoy this game just as much as you do. But if not, that's okay, and we can just agree to like games.
Definitely. Agreeing to like games, that's something that I'm trying to teach the Fire Emblem community as well. It's like, hey, you don't have to enjoy the games we play, just enjoy the fact that we're enjoying that we are playing the game series you love, because that means maybe they might make more of them.
Yeah, as a wise man once said, there's nothing more scary on the internet than an opinion.
Unfortunately true, and here in the Fire Emblem community, we are no strangers to opinions. But I wish you luck.
I'm part of the Smash community. It's not like it could be any worse.
Yeah, not like there was the whole hose mad situation on Twitter a couple years ago.
Okay. Full disclosure, I loved that. I don't know why, but fan bases flaming each other. I never participate, but I just start laughing at it. And it amuses me to no end.
Fair enough. Well,
if you guys want to keep doing that, just know that you're providing me endless entertainment. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, have a wonderful stream. I will see if I can get this up as a Saturday morning video and direct viewers to there. If not, I hope that anyone who's watching this in the future checks out the stream VODs. I don't know if they'll be on YouTube. You've mostly been streaming on Twitch and Kick. We'll see. I don't think your YouTube. You mostly try to stick to your like Smash Amiibo content.
I'll try and get the VODs up at least as a unlisted playlist.
Okay. And if I find that there, then afterwards in the description below, I will link that as well.
All right.
Alrighty. And with that, this is Mithril Zenith and Splice signing out.